Hello, and welcome to AF Tech Talk, keeping you up to date on the latest in accounting and fintech tools. Each episode, we take a peek behind the scenes to explore the founders and teams working tirelessly to build us the tools that power those we serve. As always, I'm Marissa. This is Michael. Today, we're very excited about our guest. Michael, you want to introduce him?
Yeah. We're talking to Ram Krishnamurthy, the co-founder and CEO of Maximor, which is a company building AI teammates to revolutionize accounting and finance operations. And before Maximor, Ram led a large-scale AI and data transformation initiative for customers like Microsoft, customers at Microsoft, and designing Coca-Cola's global finance lake to unify and accelerate financial reporting across regions. And he's also a second-time founder. Ram previously built and sold an AI startup while studying at IIT Madras. So, welcome, Ram, to AF Tech Talk. How are you doing today?
Thank you for having me, Michael and Marissa.
Yeah, we're excited. You were recommended to us and referred to us by our friend Kenji Kiramoto over at Acuity, and super excited to hear about what you're building. But why don't you first tell us just a little bit more about your background? Really cool background of working at Microsoft, working with Microsoft and Coca-Cola. But tell us a little more about your background and how you got into wanting to do Maximor.
Sure. I think the backstory sort of has some connection to why we're doing what we're doing. So as you mentioned, I have a background in data and AI and finance, which was sort of and pursued a degree in engineering and management at IIT Madras, and then went on to lead the data and AI initiatives at Microsoft. So it was a very good learning opportunity where we were working with business finance leaders at mid and large enterprises, right? And you could see the sort of scale and complexity of a lot of the challenges there. The reason I'd like to sort of maybe talk about the Coca-Cola engagement is, in fact, that's the spark of what led to sort of Maximor, which was essentially, the goal was simple: Coca-Cola build the global finance lake to accelerate their financial reporting across all the regions' business lines, right? Pretty simple, except super complicated. They have sort of data across multiple ERPs, multiple finance systems across every business line, across every global region, right? And because of all this siloed nature, there's a lot of manual teams having to sort of figure out processes to bring data together, close the books, and report, right? And at the time, the sort of obvious approach here would have been to go and customize each of the ERPs and software systems, implement like a close workflow management solution, and sort of to bring all of the manual data together, processes together. But we took a bit of an interesting approach, which ended up sort of working really well, which is we said, let's not look at bringing all of these workflows together. Let's instead sort of look at how do we unlock all of this data that's stuck in different formats in all of these different systems. If we could bring it together into a uniform format, then you could essentially unlock quote unquote automation, right? I'm still talking like 5-6 years back where automation was different, but you could do it, right? And that worked really well. I can get into other details of what happened, but what we did then was we took that blueprint and we went to other enterprises, other mid-market companies, and that worked really well. But I'd say we were still only halfway there because we solved the data problem. At the time, sort of reasoning over accounting principles, being able to do actions, etc., was still not possible, right? Before Gen AI, and so we were only halfway there. And so when the Gen AI wave hit a year and a half back, me and my engineering counterpart at Microsoft, who's today my co-founder, we sort of decided to start this company, and things are going quite well.
That's great. And so is the main problem that you're trying to solve primarily at large enterprises? Is that who kind of the main buyer would be of, or main customer would be of Maximor?
Yeah, so we look at it as mid-market and enterprise, which is fast-growing companies. It doesn't have to necessarily be enterprise, but fast-growing companies where the financial workload complexity is scaling very quickly. And what's getting interesting is today we're working with some of the fastest-growing AI companies, where even when you're at like a Series B stage, you're having to now sort of innovate a lot on pricing. You're having to innovate a lot on different sort of global structures. to keep your cost structure really good. And now that introduces a lot more complexity even at a young stage, right? And so that I'd say companies which are essentially having financial complexity and having sort of hiring challenges and sort of typically close periods greater than 7-8 days as well, or anyone sort of becomes a viable customer for us.
That's great. That's really awesome. What was it about this particular problem and larger enterprises that made this made you find it interesting enough to want to go tackle it in this more automated form now with Maximor?
Yeah, so I mean, both me and my co-founder come from a family of accountants. My dad's, in fact, a CFO of a publicly listed company. So sort of grew up always watching him away during the month end. I think that probably was always there at the back of my mind. And so when I got the opportunity to work with a lot of finance teams at Microsoft, sort of that I think naturally became a calling. But if I were to specifically speak about what we again see here is, what we saw a gap in the market here, right? Which is whenever we worked, even in the context of Microsoft with CFOs, ERP, everyone doesn't have the most sort of happy feeling with NetSuite or Sage Intacct or typically your ERPs, even at SAP. But no one sort of wants to put put the name on the line, right, with respect to an ERP migration or doing it. So we learned a few things that taking an approach, like a lot of software founders end up taking this approach of saying, I'm going to build a net new ERP. And I think that's, while I give a lot of like kudos to them, I think it's hard for the customer if you put yourself in the shoes of a CFO. So essentially, how do you integrate with the existing finance stack of a company without expecting to migrate your systems? I think was one of the sort of core tenets that we wanted to sort of build on top of. And then I think the second thesis of what we saw at Microsoft, which is sort of focus on the data, right? Because garbage in, garbage out. If you can focus on the input operational systems, get that data into a format that becomes amenable to quote unquote Gen AI, then you can achieve a lot more, right? And that's in fact the core sort of product tenets, where we said that if we apply this and look at the market, then are there people who are solving it similar to us? And the answer was a clear no. And we said, okay, let's go address that white space, right? And I think in a model where it's not only marketing speak, where we say AI teammates, but truly sort of not building and selling it as a software solution, which has to compete with other software budget, but essentially thinking of it as AI teammates that can sort of connect into your existing systems, do the work, but do the work where it's not a black box, but do it with the right audit trails, explainability, involving and collaborating with the human team as sort of at all the right places, and then taking right actions, right? And actions is not just posting journal entries. It's also sort of understanding the company's reporting needs, understanding the types of schedules that they care about, et cetera, and then populating that. And being open to populating that in an alternate software system without saying that I will build it all, right? So that's sort of, I think, the core thesis that we have.
That's great. Well, love to jump in and have you show us a demo of the product.
Yeah, it's always sort of show button and tell. Can you see my screen here? So I'll sort of try to showcase a good chunk of the product. So, but probably covering all of it will exceed the time that we have today. So I'll try to sort of go back to the point I was talking about, right? Like AI is really useful here when AI is ambient, right? It preferably should not be another software tool where you have to go in and do 100 different things, right? But then there is a need for a user experience where, again, AI can sort of interface with the human. Like human AI collaboration is something that we really think about very strongly, whether that means connecting with all the systems that the human is already using, and then sort of doing the work, coming back to the human whenever the work is done, or when the AI is not confident enough, and then sort of showing the work that was done, right? So that's really the interface that I'll sort of try to get across here, right? And just to sort of quickly start from the point of integrate, then migrate. So we're actively working on a broad set of integrations. Today, our customer base already sort of, some of the customers are on the lower end where they're working with 6 or 7 entities, QuickBooks, Zohos, Zeros in different entities. And on the other end, we also have customers who are on Sage or NetSuite, right, on the accounting stack. And we also integrate across other AP and spend management systems, on different invoicing tools, payroll systems, CRMs, right? And specifically, I'll get to talking about, like, you see the way we've organized the product is also around the day-to-day accounting work, then the period close, then the reporting and the financial analysis, right? Where the key areas that we've been focused on the day-to-day accounting side is on revenue recognition, on AP expenses, as well as on cash, right? And I'll get to sort of where we're looking at all of these more end-to-end holistically, where in revenue, right? One of the common problems that we've been seeing is, even though there are like your CRMs and a lot of invoicing tools, there are a lot of gaps in the middle, especially when we're talking about fast-growing companies, where today companies are innovating in pricing. You're no longer just having subscription pricing models. You're having subscription, usage, volume-based pricing, partnership revenue, etc. Right? That truly sort of preventing revenue leakage is one of the top goals, right? And that means recognizing revenue correctly, but also then making sure that your invoicing is sort of kosher with all of your with revenue, right? So I'll sort of give you an example of where we have these AI agents that are essentially working behind the scenes, where whenever there is a closed opportunity in Salesforce or wherever you're tracking your contracts, the agent automatically picks up the contract and does contract analysis, right? And while there have been a lot of like contract analysis tools out there, they've been really focused on extracting the basic information, right? Which is still useful, which is like your who's the buyer, who's the sort of what's the contract value, the amount, and so on. Versus where we've seen the human workflows come in typically in a lot of manual work is actually apply the ASC 606 codifications, right? Which means identifying what's the relevant products when you have a complex contract, identifying how to recognize the amount, the timing, and so on, right? And just to sort of illustrate a point here, I'm going to take one example where if you even have a simple subscription revenue, but you now have a 5-year contract that you, as you can see, that you're signing with your customer, and you're having differential pricing, right, every year on year, then knowing when to recognize the entire amount and then straight line that across the period versus treat every individual period distinctly is part of what the tedious work that an accountant has to do, which is review the contract, apply the code, like codes, and so on, right? And where what we do is identify the relevant products and take you to the right parts, but also give you reasoning, right? To say, is this to be according to series guidance in ASC 6, and let me not try to get too technical here, but like what should be the right analysis, right? Both according to ASC 606, but also understanding the revenue policy of the company. And in a lot of times, what we've seen is the company does not have a revenue policy at this stage, but identifying and sort of putting together a revenue policy is part of what we do during implementation, right? And our implementation is super quick as well, like in 6 weeks. But within that, we can put together a lightweight revenue policy and sort of help the customer get moving, right? And in fact, with some of our early customers, we've been able to sort of identify revenue recognition mistakes super early. You don't have to become a $300 million company and then have to go work with KPMG to then realize that you were doing revenue recognition wrong, right? So we're sort of able to catch mistakes super early there. And then while you can always be using a lot of other invoicing tools, we integrate with the other invoicing tools, making sure that you are actually raising invoices which are kosher with what's in your contract. So while we analyze your invoices and extract the line items, the really other complex thing that we do is matching, while you could have a lot of contracts and invoices, matching the relevant line item in your invoice to what was the relevant product that your sales team had sold, and then making sure that the invoicing amount and timing is matching, right? So we can throw warnings to say that the invoice timing does not match the contract schedule, right? And this again is AI doing the work and always coming back to the human to say there's an error. Can you help review, or I need help, right? And while doing all of that, again, doing the actions here, right? Which means preparing your accrual schedules or your deferral schedules, which you can always one-click download into Excel, or then also preparing the journal entries, which you can then approve, and we can push down to NetSuite, right? So that's just an idea of like what we do on revenue, right? And I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about AP and expenses as well, but similarly there, we go down to sort of collating your bills across all of your emails, and then being able to do the right invoice coding, making sure that, and the other interesting thing that we also do is not just, again, do the accounting work, but what we've heard from our customers again and again is a lot of times the challenges is also just the operational rigor in responding back to vendors on email, sort of answering their payment questions and so on, right? So in fact, one of the interesting products that we're currently working with some customers is on sort of the agentic email automation, just so that the controller doesn't have to spend a few days every month on just responding on emails, right? And then on the cash side, while we do obviously we do the bank coding, the categorizations, but then the other very interesting that we think that we do is also get into more high accuracy matching of cash in payments in and payments out to sort of accounting transactions, while handling the really complex cases, which is typically we've heard when you have partial payments, when you're having to do sort of bank charges that where the amounts are not exactly matching and so on, right? And so that's really where that while there are a sort of cash reconciliation tools that are there both in the NetSuite and QuickBooks ecosystem, that last 20-30% is really where there's a long tail of tedious work, right? And can you get towards higher accuracy there, right? Is really sort of what we've been able to work, and we've been able to deliver value to our customers, right? So in fact, while so with some of our early customers, what used to be a 10-day close, we've brought that down to 3 days already. And our intent is to sort of get to that continuous close, right, as much as we can. So I'll take a quick pause there. I know I sort of spoke a lot on accounting. There's also things that we're trying to make the close really a gamified product here, where AI is sort of working behind the scenes. And the checklist now becomes just a means to an end, where rather than you sort of having to use this to bring all the people together, AI does the work, and then the close becomes sort of a continuous process, right? And finally, on the reporting side as well, where when you're having to now deal with multiple entities and having to do intercompany eliminations, get that data in more sort of rather than spending a couple of days at the end of every month to bring a consolidated statements, can we basically do real-time consolidation, right? And then be able to allow you much more richer reporting. One of the common challenges that we've heard with customers in NetSuite is it's just not the reporting capability, it's just the user experience also, which is really sort of intimidating. Where now can you be able to sort of do a much more seamless reporting on whether it's sort of monthly, quarterly, being able to break down the reports based on departments, products, and tax, right? And so that's really sort of across accounting, close, and reporting, all the manual, tedious work, where we are having AI do the preparer work and then collaborate with humans in the right sort of either for the edge cases, but also in the case of like the long tail of review work that needs to be done, right? So let me take a quick pause there, Michael and Marissa.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. I very familiar with NetSuite, and it was an innovation when it came out, right? Being one of the pure play cloud-based accounting tools, but it now, compared to the more modern user experiences that people are used to, going into a NetSuite can be intimidating, and or going into any product that for a fast-growing company can be intimidating. And so for you to update the kind of the engagement of it, and the way you're getting reporting makes sense. It sounds like Maximor is almost like a product that you want the user coming into on a daily basis or regular basis, where it's actually automating work, it's doing work in the background, presenting to you information. And also, I liked how you said that those use cases, like, you know, if you're using Stripe and you're getting settlements and you're trying to figure out fees in that settlement, you're trying to hit those edge cases or use cases that a lot of manual time is being spent on something that has only 20% impact but takes up 80% of your time in that week or day.
Exactly. I think you put it perfectly in words, because I think this a lot of, I mean, I think software of our up till now has done a really good job for all the 80% of the cases. But really the 20%, as you put it well, the 20% takes 80% of the time. And I think that's really what a human accountant can do, right? But it's tedious. No one wants to do it. There are not enough people to do it.
Yeah.
But that's what a human would be able to do. And I think that's really where AI can, and that teammate concept, right? Which is truly sort of doing the work, the drudgery, so that you can now, I know it's sort of cliched, so that you can now sort of focus on strategy, right? So that the drudgery is taken care by AI.
That makes a lot of sense. Is there anything else on the demo that you wanted to show before we move on?
Yeah. So, I mean, the other sort of cherry on the cake here is while we've been we think that focusing on the accounting, close, and reporting ops is really what's going to help the human team move more into like real-time financial reporting. And while this is more of agents doing the work end to end, what we're also starting to see, and we're seeing some very interesting results with our customers, is because we've focused on the data and we have this sort of data lineage of the most sort of clean traces of not just the journal entries, but all the way back to what the context was in the source systems. When we're now getting into FP&A use cases, where while there are sort of interesting tools that are there in the FP&A world, how can we present this data to our customers in a way that allows them to light up very interesting use cases? Where, for instance, we started with this sort of flux analysis copilot on top, where the types of flux analysis insights that our customer was able to get in terms of identifying anomalous transactions was very interesting, because the context was not just there in the description memo on the journal entry. It was there in the source system, in the invoicing system, right? Now the question is, how do you go there? Like if you start from the copilot on the FP&A layer, like it's very hard to build that lineage and trace all the way back to the source systems, right? But because we're starting from this input data, it allows us to sort of connect all of this together and allow the customer to get into more rich insights, right? And so we're super excited on that, right? And I think there's a lot of sort of value to create for customers here.
That's great. That's really, really great. Well, tell us about you and your co-founder. How'd you guys meet? And then what has kind of funding to date looked like for you as co-founders?
Yeah, so me and my co-founder have been good friends for 15 years. We met at college at IIT Madras. So he's had a very illustrious past in his engineering career. In fact, while at Microsoft, he was the engineering lead for Microsoft's internal finance platform. So the same sort of blueprint that we were following externally, we took that and sort of made Microsoft customer number 0. And he was the lead there, right? So he sort of has a rich experience in building the system. And so that's how we sort of said we should do this together. So we sort of started, and we did raise a sort of an undisclosed pre-seed last year, where we consciously sort of put together a good cohort of people, where we took folks. I mean, we basically have investors across the board here, which is a mix of corporate controllers at like very fast-growing companies like Gusto, MongoDB, and so on. And then we have accounting leaders from the sort of public accounting ecosystem, including Kenji, who put us in touch. And then we have AI operators. So in fact, the CEO, founder of Perplexity is an investor. And then he brought on a bunch of other AI operators. So I think we really want to be focused on the vertical here. That is, we are not trying to sort of boil the ocean. Building agentic systems for accounting requires you to sort of really be a polymath in both accounting, finance, and in AI. And that's how we've built the team. All the engineers on the team, the designers, everyone is sort of very heads down. And I'd say we are interested to sort of have everyone write the CPA exam probably in a year. Let's see what happens. But that's at least the way we're treating it, which is this is not easy. Everyone needs to be hyper sort of interested in both this AI and in finance accounting, and it is hard to hire, but we think it's what's needed.
That's great. What are you excited about for this year and the near future? And then what does fundraising look like for you guys for the year?
So let me start with the first question, right? Like I think two things really excited. One, excited in sort of building more of the deeper automation, being able to deliver value to our existing customers, right? And as I said, like we've been able to get a 10-day close down to 3. How do we go further down, right? And then deliver more value is one thing that we're super excited on. But I think the other equally excited thing that I am particularly is we've been in stealth so far. Not a lot of public sort of, we've not shared a lot of our success stories. We've not sort of shared a lot, even like probably this is one of our early demos. We want to do more of this in the coming months because I think building a community, being able to sort of share the stories is when there's going to be a watershed moment where most CFOs sort of truly how to, by end of the year, we want to be seeing more companies with AI teammates working collaboratively with the human teammates, right? And for that, it requires us to tell the story more, sort of do more of this with forward-leaning sort of finance professionals such as yourselves. So that's something that I'm super excited to do. And to answer sort of the question on fundraisers is that we're always fundraising, but we've been very heads down so far. And I don't know, this probably is going to be coming out in a month, but we're always sort of now starting to sort of, probably in a month or so, sort of starting to put together a plan for a fundraise.
Wonderful. That's great. Well, thank you so much, Ram. This is really exciting. I think what you're building is an exciting space, and really focusing on those fast-growing enterprises and the problems that are being dealt with at that larger layer of complex finance teams. And so we're looking forward to continue to see where Maximor goes. And if our audience wants to be able to reach out to you or get a hold of you, even while you're in stealth mode, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, I'm always happy to sort of have a conversation. So it's ram@maximor.ai. That's my email. And you can find me on LinkedIn and Twitter as well. So really looking forward to speaking.
Awesome. Also, thank you, Ram. Thank you for coming on today. And we're looking forward to seeing you continue to grow and